Our national parks. A prehistoric park. More than 200 million years ago, dinosaurs roamed freely over the earth. Have you ever wondered what the land was like, or what kind of trees there were then? You can see some of those trees today in Arizona. Throughout 28 miles of desert in Petrified Forest National Park, you can see 225 million-year-old fossil trees. Visitors are amazed to see these trees that have turned to stone. How did it happen? Millions of years ago, water filled with minerals flowed into the area. Over time, the minerals seeped into fallen trees and turned them into rock-hard logs. Some of these logs are 100 feet long. Today, they create a colorful and amazing sight in Arizona's desert. The petrified logs look like wooden rainbows. The colors range from red to yellow to green to blue and black and white. Petrified Forest National Parks is one of the world's biggest displays of petrified wood. Nearly 1 million people visit the park every year to get an up-close look at these fossils of prehistoric trees. King of the Mountain. By the time Scott Corey was 13 years old, he had already scaled 2 major peaks in California's Yosemite National Park. One was the 2,900-foot nose of El Capitan. The other was the 2,000-foot face of Half Dome. The first time Scott climbed the nose, it took him 3 days and 2 nights. 1 month later, he completed that climb in 1 day. Later, Scott became the youngest person to climb Half Dome in only 1 day. The journey to the top usually takes 3 days. Scott started climbing when he was 7 years old. When he's not on the peaks, he hits the gym for push-ups and pull-ups. What's next for this peak pro? Scott wants to climb to the top of the nose and Half Dome together in just 24 hours. You could say this kid really sets a goal and then climbs for it. The top 5 most visited national parks. In 1872, Yellowstone National Park became the first national park in the United States. Since then, more than 383 parks have been added to the list. More than 3 million people visit these natural, unspoiled places every year. They take thousands of photos of the wildlife. Which parks recently brought in the most visitors in a year? Here's how they ranked. Number 1, Great Smoky Mountains National Park, North Carolina and Tennessee. Number 2, Grand Canyon National Park, Arizona. Number 3, Yosemite National Park, California. Number 4, Olympic National Park, Washington. And number 5, Rocky Mountain National Park, Colorado. Animals come home to our national parks. How did the return of elk to one national park and gray wolves to another affect the ecosystems of those parks? National parks protect wildlife, history, and culture. Still, hundreds of plants and animals have disappeared from our national parks. That's because their environment has changed, mostly because of human activities. Today, park rangers work to restore the balance of each park ecosystem. They are bringing plants and animals back into their natural environments. So far, the programs are working, especially for elk and wolves. Long journey home. It was a cold morning in January when 28 elk had finally completed a long journey. They had traveled 2,500 miles by truck from Elk Island National Park in Canada to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in North Carolina. They were the first of 52 elk to be reintroduced into the park. 10 million elk once roamed all over North America. Now there are only about 1 million. Elk disappeared from North Carolina more than 150 years ago. Many were killed by hunters. Others died as people built farms, towns, and roads where elk used to graze. Elk munch on trees and bushes, allowing more sunlight into the park so ground-level plants can grow. Smaller animals like chipmunks can then flourish. Chipmunks are food for larger animals like wolves. Without the elk, the park's ecosystem didn't function as well. We are trying to restore the ecosystem to what it was 200 years ago, said Lawrence Hartman of the National Park Service. Have they achieved their goal? So far, so good. Researchers have been studying the elk's progress. Jennifer Burrow is leading the research. She tracks the elk using special radio collars that are placed around the elk's necks. The collars send signals that show researchers where the elk are and how they are doing. Researchers also keep track of the number of elk calves that are born each year. In the first year, 11 calves were born in the park. 8 survived, but some were preyed upon by bears. It's all part of the natural balance, and that's exactly what wildlife researchers like to see. The disappearance of wolves left a big hole in Yellowstone's ecosystem. Coyotes and elk, which are hunted by wolves, became too numerous. Plants began to disappear because the elk population had grown so large. Foxes, which eat the same rodents as coyotes, were starving because the coyotes were catching most of the prey. The ecosystem of the park was badly out of balance. The government wanted to fix the park's ecosystem. They decided to bring back the wolves. The goal was to put nature back into balance. Now Yellowstone is howling with life once again, and nature is taking its course. Howling back to life. For centuries, packs of wolves lived in the West. When settlers came in the 1800s, they hunted these wild animals. By the 1970s, the wolves had completely disappeared from Yellowstone National Park. They had also become endangered in much of the United States. In 1995, 31 gray wolves were released into the park. Now, more than a decade later, there are more than 5 times as many wolves roaming through Yellowstone. Saving a national park. Early settlers declared Florida's Everglades a worthless swamp. In fact, it is a unique paradise for thousands of species of plants and animals, forming a delicate food chain. All they need to survive is each other and a steady supply of precious water. But humans wanted dry land for homes and crops. They drained water from the Everglades. This started a chain reaction that upset the ecosystem. The Everglades wetlands are now only half their original size. The number of wading birds decreased by 90% from 1900 to 2000. All this has made Everglades National Park one of the top 10 most endangered parks in the United States. Now there is a plan to save the Everglades. Engineers will build wells to capture water before it flows out of the Everglades. Then they will pump the water back. Many canals will be removed, allowing water to follow its natural path. The plan may take 50 years to complete. Saving this unique ecosystem is an important goal, no matter how long it takes. Meet some Everglades species. Wood stork, an endangered species in the Everglades. This tall bird hunts for fish with its long, curved bill. Manatee. This slow-moving mammal lives in both freshwater and saltwater. Crocodile, alligator. The Everglades is the only place in the world with both reptiles. The end.